do you think is the appeal of fantasy to people who obviously don't live in fantastical worlds? Why do we enjoy it so much?
Well, that's the reason. We don't live in fantastical worlds, so we want to experience something like that. We want to get away from the humdrum everyday sort of existence and go through the wardrobe or enter the other world and become part of something exciting. And so I think the appeal is excitement, mystery, intrigue, magic. Those are the things that attract us.
I've heard about some that sort of fantasy can be some say fantasy is important because it's not in the real world. But what would you say to that?
I would say that was rubbish because it is important. Just because the protagonists in the story are dealing with, monsters or vampires or dragons or whatever, they are still using the same things we use every day. Courage, trying to be true to yourself, trying to find out who you are. It's just in a more heightened atmosphere, a different situation. But it's the same as it would be if it was a really banal everyday story. So I think fantasy is vitally important, especially for people who have a very highly charged imagination who really want to leave this world and enter different worlds. It's vital.
What kind of books influenced your writing when you were younger?
Fairy tales, folk tales, legends, myths. People like Robert Louis Stevenson's adventure stories, Treasure Island, Kidnapped, Alice in Wonderland, anything that was bizarre, surreal, zany. Alan Garner's fantasy novels, hugely, of course. Tolkien, Lewis, the obvious suspects, really. All of those things influenced me. And also writers I read later, like Robert Holstock, brilliant fantasist. So, I just wanted to write like them.
Are there any novels you particularly recommend as an example of fantasy done well?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, anybody that I've just named. Certainly Alan Garner's Owl Service and Redshift. Robert Holstock's Myth Argo Wood. Stunning. So, start with those.
So, something interesting you find with a lot of fantasy is how setting is very important in a lot of it. So, is it that setting comes first, or is it plot or characters, or are they all equal?
It depends, but quite often setting comes first, or it's very important in the development of the story. A few stories I've had where the setting, I've done a story called Crown of Eagles, which is set here in Bath, and could never be set anywhere else because it's about the building of the circus, and it was that street that actually inspired the story. So in that case, the setting definitely came first. Other times, the idea for the story comes first, and then you decide where you want to set it. So it depends, it varies.
So how detailed do you plan out your settings when you're doing that? Do you do the whole full Tolkien kind of plan?
No. No. If it's a setting I know, if it's a place I know well, then there's not a problem because obviously I know it. And I usually set books in places that I do know well because I'm familiar with the atmosphere and the history of the place and I know how it will work. So I don't actually research places. I don't do much research at all. I tend to write out of what I already know, what's already interested me and I've read about in the past. And it's sort of been fermenting in my brain for a while. And then the story comes out of that. Sometimes you have to go away and look up details, but I'm not a big researcher and I'm not a big planner. I tend to work off the cuff often.
So you don't sort of plot out your books?
I'm afraid not, no. I just sort of start it and see where it goes.
Has that ever kind of surprised you? You've started something and it's gone in completely
It's happens all the time, yeah. Often you start a story, you have a sort of idea what the end will be, but then as you're writing it, the book goes in a completely different direction and you just think, well, I've got to go with this now. So the book is sort of alive, it does its own thing, the characters do their own thing, and you have to just go with them and follow where it leads you, and it's always an adventure.
And with your books, I've been with something I've found in a lot of them, you get kind of historical fantasy, fantasy mixed with the past. What led you to that?
Well, I've always been interested in the past. I used to work as an archaeologist, so I sort of had lots of hands-on experience again. And yeah, I mean, there are so many interesting things that have happened that I just wanted to use some of them. So my current book, the Obsidian Mirror, is a time travel story. So in that, you have the whole past to play with, everything in the past that you could possibly use. So it's just so exciting for a writer to have that scope and that so many things that you could do with it.
Have you used anything you've kind of learned about as an archaeologist?
Oh yes, yeah, definitely. Because I've done several books where the protagonist is actually an archaeologist, so he's digging stuff up and really experiencing that thrill you get, pulling something ancient out of the ground covered in mud and then cleaning it off and seeing what it is. So I've done a few books like that, where that really comes into the story.
I've heard a lot of sci-fi writers saying that with science fiction you can explore things which obviously wouldn't happen in real life, explore ethical questions and stuff like that. Do you get that in fantasy as well, do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my book Incarceron, which is about a futuristic prison, that's an adventure story, but I was also trying to explore questions of freedom and, is freedom the same as not being imprisoned? Is that freedom? Is escape the same as freedom? What do we do with the people in society we don't want? How do we deal with that as a society? So I was looking at questions like that within the frame of an adventure story. So I hope that the reader, while they enjoy the story and get carried away with it, when they finish the story, maybe then they can think about the issues that are as well.
You're talking about sort of the endings of books.
Yes.
If sort of the whole fiction, you could change the ending of one book. How would you change it? What would it be?
Question. That is an awful question.
Yes, I stole it from a much cleverer interviewer who did an interview.
I would probably not have Anna Karenina throw herself under the train. Because that always strikes me as a really desolate ending. But there are probably others, but that's the only one that pops into my mind.
Could you explain your latest series in 3 words?
In 3 words? Can I have 5 words? Time travel meets scary fairies.
Say in 50 or 100 or 500 or 1,000 years' time, somebody picks up your book from amongst the records of civilization. What do you think they think on reading it, and what would you like them to think?
I would like them to start reading it and not be able to put it down, even though it's 1,000 years old. I'd like them to think, wow, this woman could really tell a story. Because I think the storyteller is the oldest profession in the human race, and I hope it will be the one that lasts the longest.